Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Peter. I'd like to again welcome you to the Raymond A. Mason School of Business Alumni webinar, Business Survival in a Moody World, presented by fellow alumnus Peter Atwater. My name is Eliza Parrish. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement for the Mason School of Business at the College of William and Mary, and these webinars are offered as part of our pledge to provide you with opportunities for lifelong learning and professional development. I have sent you a brief biography and links about Mr. Atwater and will not take time away from his presentation to iterate what has been sent. A few points worth repeating, however. Herb Greenberg of CNBC said of him, he is one of the smartest guys you've never heard of on anything financial. He is the author of Moods and Markets, which details how investors can improve returns by using non-market indicators of confidence. He is a regular contributor to Minionville.com and has written articles for World Policy Institute. His research on confidence has been cited by the Financial Times, Reuters, and Time magazine, among others. To see more of his work on radio, print, and television, please refer to the link in the confirmation email sent to you last evening. He's a proud alumnus of the College of William and Mary, as is his wife Janet, and in 2017 the number of alumni and family will grow by one when William and Mary degree is conferred upon their daughter. Not on his CV, but immensely important, as a William and Mary student, Peter was RA to John Stewart. We will take questions as time allows. Mr. Atwater has agreed to address some of your questions in a follow-up email if we don't get to them in a timely fashion. Mr. Atwater says social mood is the invisible hand that determines our preferences, decisions, and actions. It is the why of what we do. And with that, I thank you for joining us, and I turn it over to Mr. Atwater with our thanks.
Thanks, Eliza, very much. And it's really fun to look at the list of participants in today's call, lots of friends, fraternity brothers. I appreciate everybody coming out for this. What I'd like to do in the spirit of Mythbusters is to start this talk by debunking some things that I think are conventional wisdom that are just plain wrong. So let me see if I can move this along with that. The first thing is that I think we've all been raised to believe that what we do changes our level of confidence. And you see that particularly in the self-help aisles at Barnes & Noble, where they're filled with books of do this and your confidence will improve. And in fact, one of the most popular TED Talks today is Amy Cuddy's speech, where if you stand like Wonder Woman, your confidence will improve. Well, I'd like to suggest, particularly for people in business, far more important is the notion that confidence impacts what you and the world around you does. So let me give you some examples of why I think this is true. The first is the popular myth that the banking crisis caused American confidence to fall. Well, here's a chart of Gallup economic confidence. The folks at Gallup measure on a daily basis how Americans feel about the economy. And the numbers in this suggest that in 2000, at the very top, almost 60% of Americans thought the economy was good or was going to get better. By 2008, though, the numbers had fallen dramatically. And if we zoom in on 2008 and 9, that's when the banking crisis occurred. And you can even see the collapse in confidence, the panic, as it were, that took place with the collapse of Lehman Brothers in the fall of 2009. But you'll notice that right after that, confidence rose. The panic marked the bottom, not anywhere near the beginning of the drop in confidence. So let's keep moving along. And confidence rose into 2010 and then began to fall and then fell sharply in the summer of 2011. And if you can think back, something very significant happened in the fall of 2011 in this period of time, which was Occupy Wall Street. But I love how the pundits in the media all describe the event as spontaneous. As somebody who looks at how confidence impacts the decisions that we make, there was nothing spontaneous about this. People who lack confidence display the same kinds of behaviors over and over. You should expect that when confidence is low and falls sharply, that people are going to do something to reflect that. our level of confidence impacts what we do. And if you look at this chart, which takes at the top Google Trends data on income inequality, and it's plotted on top of a similar short-term chart for Gallup. And the Gallup, as you'll see, when confidence falls, we become very interested in inequality. And I think a lot of that has to do with the zero-sum thinking that we acquire when our confidence is low. We believe that somebody else gained at our expense when we feel bad. So let me go through another big economic myth that I think is out there, and that is that increases in home prices boost confidence. This is a chart of the Philadelphia Bank Stock Index, which is a portfolio of the major housing companies in America, plotted over the same Gallup confidence chart. And I don't know about you, but I can't tell which is chicken or egg. It's clear to me that changes in confidence change our perception of home builders and in turn our sense of the value of homes. And it's not just for homes. You see the same kind of correlation between how we feel about banks. Our confidence in ourselves drives how confident we are in banks. Another myth, and that is that the media impacts our level of confidence. Well, here's a chart of the same period of time when Occupy Wall Street was taking place in the fall of 2011. And don't you know, this was the cover story on The Economist the week that the crowd at Zuccotti Park peaked. Until politicians actually do something about the economy, be afraid. Well, not only was this the wrong message, but look at all of the other things that we were fearful of at this time. You know, we were concerned about British politics, Russia, and things were so uncertain that we were beginning to question whether Einstein was wrong. Again, a great example of the media following mood. Here's another set. I always think that the timing is perfect when something ends up on Time Magazine's cover. In 2012, as oil prices were beginning to peak again, Time Magazine says homegrown oil isn't going to lower prices at the pump. And then just in the first week of February this year, what does Time Magazine say again? Cheap gas, how low will it go? Time Magazine called both the top and the bottom in gas prices. Another one, particularly for people who are in business, who have involved in a public corporation. And if you watch CNBC or Bloomberg or Fox Business, there is this repeated message that the analysts impact investor confidence. Well, here's a pair of charts pulled from Bloomberg magazine. The one on the left, Gene Munster, one of the most prominent stock analysts on Apple. And when Apple was at about $650 a share, he was calling for a $1,000 target, almost a 50% increase. And you'll see he's dancing, he's got bright colored shirt on, and what happens? 3 months later, stock is down sharply, and we have the world's smallest violin being played in a black and white image. Analysts follow mood. Another myth. Politics impacts confidence. Here's a chart that goes back to the early 1970s, the popularity of Richard Nixon. And I pulled it on top of a chart of the S&P 500. Again, hard to tell which is chicken or egg. And I would suggest that falling confidence in the 70s not only brought down our popularity of Richard Nixon, but the markets as well. And it's not just Richard Nixon who falls victim to this. The top chart is from Pew and shows the popularity of President Obama. And you can see that it is tightly correlated to how we feel ourselves about the economy. Another myth that's out there. Culture impacts our level of confidence. You know, zombies, all of these dystopian movies. Well, a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a group of seventh graders about investing. And this is a chart I used with them because at the same time you had the riots in Zuccotti Park, wouldn't you know that we're listening to Adele and all of those sad breakup songs, you know, slit your wrist music. Well, the market's up almost 100% since then, and what are we doing? We're dancing to happy. And if I can leave you with one message as an investor, as I did to those seventh graders, you want to buy Adele and sell Pharrell. So we like to think that the College of William and Mary, being a smart school, 300-year history, we couldn't possibly fall victim to this. Well, when I was writing my book a couple of years ago, Louise Kale was kind enough to help me plot all of the buildings on campus since 1900 against the stock market. And don't you know that they all tend to cluster around three major market peaks? The old campus in the late 20s, new campus in the late 60s, and the modern campus today being where I'm sitting. But my favorite example of all of the buildings on campus, sorority court. Because it's not just that we build at the top, it's that we build really fun things at the top. In this headline from the Flat Hat, September 27th, 1929, just weeks before the crash, we opened sorority court. And we repeated, as Mark Twain says, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And our campus rhymes significantly. You have the fraternity complex in the late 1960s, and as my daughter refers to them, the frat castles that opened just a couple of years ago. We build party houses at the top. Our level of confidence transcends everything we do. And as somebody who observes mood, it's so valuable. It's such a rich mosaic to be able to look across culture, business, finance, the media, politics, and you see the same kinds of behaviors being exhibited, all simultaneously. But it's the consistency of those behaviors that I think for people who are running businesses is so valuable. Confidence is not about brawn. It's about brains. It's how hard it is for us to think. And when we are confident, our brains can relax. It's easy. And we think we can understand things. We trust things. We are prepared. And that is what defines confidence. So before I move forward, what I'd like you to do for a second is to think about, where is your level of confidence? The confidence level of your clients, of your employees, of the public policymakers that you work with, the politicians that you may be involved with. How is their confidence being reflected back at you? When our confidence is low, let me stop for a second. Our confidence impacts our relationship with the world around us in many different ways. One of them is how we deal with other people. And when our confidence is low, self-interest and focus on what's important to me matters more than what's important to you. In the same way, confidence impacts our relationship with the physical world around us. And you see that things that are happening close by matter more to us when our confidence is low than things that are far away. The same is true in terms of ethnic proximity as well. And importantly, our level of confidence impacts how we look at the world in terms of timing. Things that are happening now when our confidence is low matter far more than things in the future. We don't plan when confidence is low. Probably the most important and interesting aspect of this relates to things that are hypothetical. When our confidence is low, we are desperate for things that are concrete. Things that are abstract, we really can't cope with those. And when I talk about abstract, it has multiple dimensions to it. When I lack confidence, I want to be able to control things. I want to be able to influence events. Things that are familiar are better. I feel better about them. Things that are predictable, simple to understand. I think that we have been fitted unknowingly with a set of Google goggles where how we perceive the world around us is driven by our level of confidence. And there's no question that things that are happening close by, in terms of emotion and our level of confidence, we see more clearly, and things that are further away, we see them to be foggier, for lack of a better term. And so what you see is that the further things get away from us, the foggier they become. But appreciate how changes in confidence distort this image. As our confidence falls, things that are closer become foggier. And that we, in response, cut those off from our thinking. They become overwhelming. We just can't worry about them. We can't focus on them. We can only have enough bandwidth for what's immediately around us. And you can see that as confidence falls even more, when confidence is at an extreme low, it's all about control, familiarity, predictability. Do we understand it? Is it simple? And this is what's driving behaviors all around us today. Now, the same is true in reverse, that as our level of confidence grows. Now, I'm being told that the audio is breaking up badly, so I'm going to pause here for a second and see if we can fix things a little bit. Okay, others are saying they can hear fine, so I think I'm going to just keep going. I'm sorry to those that are having trouble hearing. Okay, the same is true in reverse, and that is that as our confidence rises, the world around us we perceive to be more stable, more clear, we trust it more. At the very extreme in confidence, things that are farthest away, physically, emotionally, relationally, are as clear as those things that are closest to us. And I think that you can see two very different worlds for someone who is very highly confident and someone who has low confidence in this chart. When our confidence is low, it is all about me here now. And the things that we value are concrete, understandable, simple, predictable. And then when confidence is high, we embrace complexity, innovation, things that are abstract. We travel to the far reaches of the world. We go to the moon because we think that anything is possible, even things that would be viewed to be the most uncertain. Those we can do that. So this is again that chart from Gallup, and it looks at confidence over the last almost 20 years. And you can see that in 2000, confidence peaked at 56. But if we drill down and look at the behaviors, you see lots and lots of us everywhere, forever behaviors. The embracement of an unpredictable world that we perceive to be stable. Our love of innovation and complexity. I saw that in the permanence in purchases, people buying instead of repairing products. I saw that in the development of corporations where not only were they multinational, they were transnational. They'd become like the IMFs of the business world. Politically, it was evident in compromise and middle ground. Europe took it to a whole new level with the development of the euro and the ECB. And in fact, Germany, Spain, France merged all of their military supply chain. It's something that would be unimaginable 50 years ago. Just-in-time inventory. I think this was the heyday of FedEx. You could get anything from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world just when you needed it. Probably the greatest example of this, though, was the dot-com bubble. That sense that anything could be accomplished through technology. Now, to be fair, I see some of the same behaviors today among a small group of people in America. These were two articles that I saw in the past 2 weeks in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. this competition for $100 million spec house, or letting your 13-year-old pick your $14 million condominium in New York. Talk about actions expressing an extraordinary level of confidence. But those are hardly alone. I saw the same thing in the art world. It's not enough today that billionaires have their own collection of art. Now they need their own museums to show it off. Or what's happening in New York in terms of luxury condominium buildings. There is a bonanza of these really slim, ultra-modern, reach-to-the-sky skyscrapers. And one that got my attention last week is now going to have its own built-in park. So children don't need to even go to Central Park. It'll be on the 83rd floor. But it's also seen in cars with the reintroduction of the Maybach Pullman, in floating condominiums shaped like Monaco, or air travel, where even hotel chains like the Four Seasons are introducing 757s for 20 people so you can take your own hotel with you around the world. But the tech, and this one made me really laugh. Things are so good at the ultra high end that Boeing is now having to mothball planes in the desert because they can't get enough ultra luxury lay flat seats for their airplanes. Talk about us everywhere forever kinds of confidence. But I'm also seeing that same behavior in the technology space. Google announcing an insane new building. They'll have no interior walls. But they're hardly alone. Apple's building a spacecraft-shaped new building in Cupertino. Amazon has this building that looks like it stepped out of the 1964 World's Fair. Facebook and another building for Google. These incredibly rich, crazy architectural designs. Or you could go work at Twitter and work in a log cabin. For the ultra tech world and those who are closest to the financial markets, this is a period of time that resembles 2000. And I think most evident by the advent of what I call the decacorn bubble. These are companies that not only are worth $1 billion in private equity funding, but $10 billion, an unprecedented valuation. And it is a complete and utter embrace of innovation, complexity, a sense that this can go on forever. For those that are closest to the tech world and the markets, their confidence tracks the stock market almost perfectly since 2009. But I think it's important to appreciate how different their level of confidence is from the rest of the world. For Main Street confidence has been really pretty weak for the last 13 years. Yes, things are better than they were in 2009, but economic confidence for most Americans is still decidedly negative. And more importantly, they're acting like it. While people like Thomas Piketty talk about income inequality, I would offer that for people in business, it's really much more about confidence inequality and this confidence divide that exists between a very small group of folks that are highly connected to the markets and to technology, and the vast majority of Americans who are on the left-hand chart. For most Americans, this is still a very me here now world where they want to rent rather than own. It's all about me here now and things like selfies, Facebook, Twitter, me here now politics and the extremism, in the desire for anti-immigration provisions. But you see it in food with the development of craft breweries, farm-to-table dining, the locavore movement, farmers markets. Big corporations are seen as too big to fail, too complex to understand. We want them to be smaller, simpler, more transparent. We're binge watching on Netflix. You have states and parts of states talking about secessionism. And I'd offer that even the anti-vaccination movement ties to a mood of me here now. But unfortunately, today's economists don't understand this at all. And this came home to me earlier this spring when I kept reading about the fact that lower gas prices were going to be a huge boost to retail sales. Now, as somebody who looks at confidence and how confidence drives decision making, I knew there was no way that that lower gas prices were going to do anything to sales. Not when people feel bad about the economy, especially after almost 13 years. What was clear to me was that 6 years since the banking crisis of extreme underconfidence, we would hoard it. And in fact, that's what the data suggested that came out last week, that the savings rate was at an unprecedented high level. And to me, that comes down to one really simple thing. The wealth effect that economists put so much of their reliance on in their models, that's a high confidence phenomenon. You have to have high confidence to believe that your wealth is going to be there for a long time. When you lack confidence, it's all about the income effect. Me here now. And so if gas prices are going down, that's a real positive income effect. And what am I going to do if I feel bad about it? I'm going to pay down debt. I'm going to save it. I'm going to put it away for a rainy day. There is no way I am going to start spending it until I feel better. But it's not all bad news. If you look at the most successful businesses in the last decade, substantially all of them have some aspect of me here now, simple elements to them. You see that in the tech space with companies like Apple and Facebook. In the communications space, Netflix, Hulu, Keurig with those K-cups. I mean, you talk about me here now, we can't even share a pot of coffee. Pawn shops, me here now finance. Generac, Sturmrigger, or Ruger. A GoPro, which I think is this generation's Polaroid, another company that came to the forefront during a similar period of weak confidence. And even companies like Airbnb and Uber, again, examples of extreme me here now preferences. But appreciate that if you are part of an us everywhere forever corporation, the challenges that you face. Somebody like Budweiser, whose entire existence rests at the far reaches of confidence, now having to compete against local craft breweries, including my favorite, Atwater Brewing in Detroit. No relationship, but I just thought that was worth sharing. Or McDonald's, competing against Chipotle, where you can have it your way, delivered in a more transparent way. And you could add to that the same proliferation of these specialty burger companies, or even food trucks, which are even a more extreme example of me here now. I see the same thing going on in cable and the advent of Hulu and Netflix, and even something like HBO Go, skinny bundles. We want on-demand, me here now television. We don't want what Comcast is trying to offer us today. And we're getting angry at Comcast as a result. It's not just the customer service that's out of sync with how we feel today. Now, somebody like Wal-Mart faces a huge challenge in trying to compete with a farmer's market. But I thought it was fascinating that during 2011, right when Occupy Wall Street was coming to the forefront, they introduced that they were going to provide fresh local produce in their stores. But you'll notice last week's big announcement in the merger of Kraft and Heinz. And what did the media say? Kraft's products haven't kept pace with America's changing taste. And my reaction is no kidding. Kraft is way out there in the far reaches of confidence, and Americans want food that is much more me here now. But Kraft is hardly alone among the food companies in being way out there. And when you are a high confident transnational corporation, it's extremely difficult to reposition yourself in a me now here world, particularly because you've spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars trying to create a ubiquitous global brand. You want those global arches to mean the same thing to everybody everywhere in the world at a time when they don't want it. And to try and reposition yourself back into that center of a me near how world, me me here now world is a really tough challenge, especially given the brands that exist for somebody like Kraft. You know, you've got Tang and Oreo cookies. And I was joking with some folks the other day, you know, for somebody like Kraft to reposition Velveeta cheese, you can't just throw Vermont goat cheese on it or artisan bread into stovetop or free range bologna. I mean, these are things that just don't fit. They're not authentic. They're not real. And that's the problem for a lot of corporations. Because as confidence falls, we trust big very little. We scrutinize more. And why do you think TV shows like Mythbusters exist today? We're challenging everything. We have very high demands for authenticity. We want companies who are good at one thing, not everything. And we want this great sense of local. But for a company like McDonald's or Wal-Mart, this also impacts what they pay their people, because you can't be an us everywhere forever company and be paying people in the center less than minimum wage. And so part of the reason for this rise in minimum wage is as corporations are trying to be more authentic, more local, they have no choice due to falling social mood but to increase the wages for people who are very much me here now today. But it's not just in business where this phenomenon exists. And I would throw out there that Dave Bratt's surprising spontaneous victory over Eric Cantor last year was a great example of grassroots, me here now politics against an us everywhere political brand. And as we look at 2016, I think that you've got the same potential phenomenon developing between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. And so I don't think it was at all a surprise to hear Martin O'Malley this past weekend talk about the fact that the presidency is not a crown to be passed back and forth between two dynasties. The challenge for the Bush and Clinton campaigns is that they are us everywhere candidates in a me here now world. And so it will be fascinating to watch to see whether they can get through the gauntlet of low trust, intense scrutiny, a desire for authenticity, and local and nationalist views. If you are involved in the political space, the outcome of the 2016 election, particularly in the primaries, really rests in what happens to confidence from here. If we start to see a sharp rise in confidence, then the Bush-Clinton rematch is almost a foregone conclusion. But I think that if you see confidence falling, particularly sharply, you could end up with a 1968-like convention scene for both Republicans and Democrats, where the battleground relates to different factions within the party. As I look at the world today in running a business, you have two very distinct spaces. You have a space that exhibits extraordinarily high confidence, that's focused in the technology and financial space, and particularly where those two intersect. And then you have the rest of Main Street America. But it's, I think, important to realize that very few industries cut across this every day. The airline industry probably is the best example of somebody who has had to adapt to a very polarized two-tier structure. The hotel industry would be another example. But I think most businesses operate in one of these two markets today. And I think as we look at America today, we have two different businesses, two different economies with an unprecedented historic confidence divide. In 2009, it was bad for everybody. But if I had to plot what's happened to confidence since then, it looks something like this. For the financial elite, confidence has soared over the past 6 years, where it has moved slowly to become less negative for most Americans. But appreciate that if you're operating a business, you have two groups of people with two very distinct sets of preferences, decisions, and actions. For the financial elite, they're operating in a extreme us everywhere forever mode, where they're embracing complexity, uncertainty, and a desire to be innovative at an unprecedented level, where the vast majority of Americans have a strong desire for me here now, simple solutions. But we are hardly alone in this. And I think that you could easily apply these same criteria, apply the same model to what's happening in Europe today. And Europe stands as an even more striking contrast in the us everywhere forever mood that exists in Germany versus Greece. And to those who are interested in what does collapsing confidence look like on a broad scale, we are witnessing that today with extreme me here now thinking that's taking place in Greek politics as well as Greek society at large. You would hope that the solution to this is that confidence will continue to rise for those that are suffering from weak underconfidence today, that they will continue to progress towards the situation that exists today for the extremely high confident population. But I think that that's really the best case scenario. And I offer that because for most Americans, this is worse than a slugger's slump at the plate. This has been 6 years, a very prolonged period of underconfidence. And that it's not the depth of the recession that matters as much to confidence as its length. You can take a time of being extremely underconfident for a short period of time and rebound. But eventually, chronic underconfidence is debilitating, and it leads to hopelessness and to potential panic. And so as I look forward, I think that the scenarios are asymmetric from here. Again, the best case scenario says that American confidence continues to slowly improve as we work our way out of 6 years of painstakingly low improvement in the economy. But I think there is an even greater potential of a sharp risk, of a sharp decline in confidence, that some population in America begins to see a wide deterioration in confidence. And so things like Ferguson are events that I take note of because that's the kind of hopelessness and behavior that results from hopelessness that begins to manifest spontaneously when confidence falls. As I said before, when confidence falls, we adopt zero-sum thinking, and we begin to think that somebody else has benefited at our own expense. And when you look at the extreme divergence in experience from 2009, it becomes very easy to see that income inequality and wealth inequality can be a lightning rod for dissent. But I think that it can easily become polarizing in any number of categories. We could see gender, race, sexual orientation, religious, educational, even ethnic dispersion. And so as we see potential declines in confidence, you want to be attuned to how people are dividing. Because again, for a business, you need to recognize that that potential division can put you in a very tough situation. And I would say that for somebody like Starbucks, their whole desire to address racial inequality backfired because of concerns that relate to low levels of confidence. So let me just wrap things up quickly. If I'm running a business, the confidence of the people around me, my clients, is going to tell me what they're doing. But more importantly, what they're doing today is going to offer a rich mosaic for how they feel. And you can see this in what the media is reporting. What is news and how it's being reported tells you about confidence. What's popular on TV, at the movies, what's being talked about on CNBC. Those are reflections of confidence more than they are contributors to changes in confidence. So it's important to know that these actions are telling you something. And I always think it's helpful to stop for a second and say, where on the spectrum of me here now to us everywhere forever was that behavior? Today I see peaking confidence among a very few, those that are in technology, in the financial elite, and again, particularly where those two worlds intersect, the confidence that I see there is extraordinary. But I see a much different story on Main Street. And so you want to make sure that your business is adapting to both extremes, particularly with the potential for falling confidence. If I can leave you with one recommendation, it's pay attention to what Gallup is offering in their economic confidence indicators on a regular basis. Because you, in your marketing, in your products, in everything that you do, need to align with the confidence of your audience. And as I said, Gallup offers a daily measure that is extremely helpful because of the connections that evolve from that. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions that people may have. I'm happy to answer your questions. So I have one already from Hal who wants to know how can he get a copy of my presentation. When Eliza is ready
send it out
and it's edited however they think it needs to be edited, I'm sure that they will post it.
There's some interesting questions here.
Eliza,
I don't know whether you've been able to watch them come in as you've been talking, but Bob Forgrave, Bob, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize.
Very happy to share.
Coca-Cola in Africa found themselves losing revenue to a cell phone company. Suddenly the me and now moved from a delicious drink to talking with distant families. So it seems like priorities.
Yes, and those priorities, you could suggest relate to Maslow's hierarchy, but family is critically important when confidence is low, and so absolutely the opportunity to swap out of Coca-Cola to dealing with your family makes perfect sense. Other questions: are there new companies? Are new companies really confidence-based, or are they more indications of changing tastes? Changing tastes reflect our level of confidence. And so those companies that are either lucky or are very clear in meeting current tastes are going to succeed. And as I said, so many of the companies that I look at that have been successful in the last 10 years all have a high connection to me here now, while those that have stumbled, they're us everywhere forever trying to figure out how do they adapt to this new world? How does Me Here Now impact philanthropy, particularly at a local community level? I think that you are seeing, just like the rise of farm-to-table dining, you're seeing much more active community philanthropic groups. That people want to make sure that their dollars are being spent locally or very targeted. I see that in terms of donor restrictions as opposed to general funds. People are being very, very specific about how they want their dollars to be spent. We don't trust organizations to spend them on whatever they want. And even at the very high end, the terms and conditions are getting more and more specific. How does our foreign policy work with the me here now attitude? I think that you are seeing that really clearly in our desire and preference for isolationism. One of the things that I noticed is that when confidence bottomed in 2003 after 9/11, that's when we went into Iraq. I mean, literally within weeks of that bottoming, the decision was made to go into Iraq. And at the time, the thinking was going into Iraq would create safety and certainty. But if you go back and look in 2009, when the markets were bottoming, that's when we made the decision to get out, because being active abroad equaled uncertainty. And so I think that what we are seeing today in foreign policy is a clear reflection of me here now preferences. We want the local economy to be fixed first before we take on the problems of the rest of the world. And that is what you see over and over during weak periods in confidence. How does this equate to the survival mode? It equates to survival very clearly. And the more extreme you see confidence fall, the more survivalist we come. But it's individual survival, it's family survival. It becomes all about my own interests, and we become less socially, financially, emotionally generous, empathetic to those around us, even those that are significantly less fortunate than we are. Big disparity in wealth between the top and the bottom. Is this driven by confidence? I think that the economic disparity has unfortunately been exacerbated, as well as the confidence disparity, by what the federal government, particularly central banks, have done to try and stimulate the economy. And to be clear, I have an extraordinary amount of respect for those whose job it is to try and address national and international economic woes. But the analogy I use a lot is they put the oxygen masks on the biggest banks, the biggest corporations, hoping that they would in turn take the masks and put them on smaller businesses, the individual, the consumer, to help boost the confidence in the economy. And for whatever reason, that has not happened. And so you have this extraordinary divide today in confidence, in wealth, and I think that is now an encumbrance to trying to address the issues that have arisen after 6 years of underconfidence. How do you close the confidence gap? I think that we need to address the needs of the underconfident. And I think that people like Eldar Safir and his co-author, whose name slips me, of a book called Scarcity, are onto something. When we lack confidence and we have me here now principles governing what we do, you can't say, for example, to an underconfident student, do well and you can go to college. That would be like me saying, do well and you can walk on the moon. It's an unrealistic objective that's so far out in the future as to be way too hypothetical. So we need to be focused on individual short-term mentoring and programs that are designed to boost the short-term confidence of a large group of Americans today. And to me, this is community-based. This is very, very local. Just like McDonald's can't be me here now enough, the federal government can't be me here now either. And so the responsibility for adopting and developing these programs needs to happen on a local level because that's where the problem is. And so we need to be thinking about programs that focus on the local influencers of the hopeless and the underconfident. Because if we can boost their confidence, we can help to close the gap. But I also think it's equally important for us to recognize that if we don't start to do this, what can evolve? Because when you look at the rise of gangs and extremist groups, they all tie to large groups of underconfident folks who are so desperate that they will do anything, and I mean literally anything, to change the trajectory. And so it is vitally important, I believe, and if you get the chance, this was the theme of my TED Talk last year, that we need to do something to address the underconfident. And that doesn't mean giving housing. I think that's a myth at this point. This is really tailoring programs that are designed to focus on the needs of the chronically underconfident. Is confidence at the whim of the events? Or do you have suggestions? I think events are driven by weak confidence, particularly extreme events. If you look at terrorism, they happen at bottoms in confidence. Even the Boston Marathon bombing happened at an extreme low in Chechen confidence. The 9/11 happened at the bottom of Middle Eastern confidence. So bad things happen when people don't feel good. Conversely, good things happen when people feel great. President Obama made the decision to go into Pakistan and took out Osama bin Laden when confidence was peaking in 2011. So it's not just all bad. There's good things that go along with rising confidence. How much confidence is self-fulfilling prophecy? Confidence is a delusion, just like underconfidence or having no confidence is a delusion. So yes, they are self-fulfilling. And as I tell my students a lot, if you have to choose a delusion, choose the delusion of confidence. It's healthier for you, it's easier, and you are as likely to be as wrong as if you choose the delusion to be without confidence. So it is entirely self-fulfilling. And I notice that particularly because you can't tell an overconfident person to be underconfident, nor can you tell an underconfident person to be more confident. It is self-determined. So you have to help them by experience and by preparedness. Does confidence really boil down to simply having a stable employment and income? Yes. Employment, particularly stable employment, stable income, is a huge boost to confidence. But I think that one of the clear differences between this recovery and prior recoveries is how little employees have confidence in the stability of their jobs or incomes. There was a statistic last year that I used. I think it was more than 50% of employees are not confident in their job. So for employers, the more that you can do to suggest and encourage a sense of certainty, the greater the confidence in your employee base, and in turn their families and those around you. But much like I talk about the difference between income effect and wealth effect, that sense of job stability is a wealth effect. That's a high confidence phenomenon. And so the more that you can do to move people's confidence, and the more they see job stability as a permanent as opposed to temporary phenomenon, the better off we're going to be. But if you look at what's happened to employment since 2009, the big growth in jobs has been temporary employment, and that does nothing to boost confidence. How does this translate to nonprofits and not-for-profit management? That's a great question, and I think that not-for-profits tend to be the tail to the confidence dog, because so many of them are impacted by these big swings in confidence where social programs tend to have enormous demand when confidence is low. and so there's huge pressure put on not-for-profits when they themselves have the least amount of funding, the least certainty. I think that you're seeing a lot of pressure for not-for-profits to consolidate and to be showing themselves as more viable. And I think that's going to continue to be one of the pressures for not-for-profits. But I would say that the current environment creates challenges for even the most successful not-for-profits because, again, donors, while they may be generous, are being generous to things that are of specific interest to them. And much like billionaires are creating their own museums, they're also creating their own philanthropies. And they want to be driving what and to whom their money is being used for. If people plow their cheap gas savings into debt reductions and savings, giving them more control over their lives, doesn't that naturally lead to growing confidence levels? And the answer is absolutely yes. And in fact, Eliza, when we send out the follow-up, remind me, and I will include a fabulous chart that Gallup did that showed a remarkable correlation between the bottoming in gas prices and boosting confidence. So yes, people felt better because of the lower gas prices and the fact that they were able to put some money away. The challenge has been since then, gas prices have risen significantly. And so you're already seeing a deterioration in confidence as gas prices have rebounded. And one of the things that I'm watching closely is that if we see gas prices fall again, will people be as confident in what lower gas prices mean, or will they merely start to see lower gas prices as being volatile and uncertain and unsustainable, in which case lower gas prices may not do anything to confidence. It's a topic that I've written about quite a bit. So last question, how do you see religion impacting confidence? Does me here now impact people's needs for religion? It is remarkable in some of the research that I've done that as confidence rises, our need and preference for religion declines. But that when confidence falls, particularly dramatically, religion and the need for faith-based programs soars, just skyrockets, comes out of the blue. And it's one of the reasons that I put religion on my list of potential distinctions, because in an environment of falling confidence, if you see people then becoming much more faith-based, religious preferences become far more important, that unfortunately provides another ground for division. And while I wish that weren't the case, that is one of the unfortunate consequences of falling confidence, that we divide among any number of lines, and religion is one of them, and it comes as a big surprise to people. But I think a lot of that is because of how prominent faith-based and as well as ethnic-based preferences become when confidence falls. So I appreciate, Eliza, and to all of you, the opportunity to come and share.
Thank you,
some of
Peter,
these
so
thoughts
terribly
with you
much.
today.
This
I
has
hope
been
that they've
absolutely
been
wonderful, and I'm
helpful,
enjoying
and
reading
that
people's
as you look at
comments
the
as they
world
come
around
in.
you,
Clearly, a lot
use
of people have
the
found this to
indicators
be
of
enormously
confidence that are
useful.
available
And
every
I'd like to
day
thank
to
two
get a
people
better
who are
sense for
behind the
how to
scenes that you
manage your
can't see,
business and the
Mike and Karen,
organizations
who
that
are
you're
making this
responsible for.
possible
So
for all of
thank
you.
you all very much, and
When
go
we do the
Tribe.
follow-up, I think Peter will take a few of the questions that we weren't able to get to and obviously send out the link that he just mentioned. And he has generously agreed to send out his email address so that you might, if you wish, to be in touch directly. So again, Peter, thank you so very much. This has been wonderful, and I think a lot of people you've given a lot of food for thought, and that's kind of a home run in my mind. So thank you, and thank you all for attending and giving us an hour of your day.